Welcome back to the preview. Wait, this is in the bag. Welcome, everybody.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna talk about the
D-Glow,
Battle
right?
for Bedford. No, I got no idea. Welcome to In the Bag, everybody. How we doing today, y'all?
Doing awesome. Good to have Jason back. What?
Brad's doing great. We had the weekly today. Brad went off and pushed everybody. I was in my bottom third, happy, smiles all day, but I was clearly in the bottom third because I ended up with the lowest tag today. So I still had fun out there.
Hey, if you have the lowest tag, that means you can always go up.
But you
can't
nowhere to
go
go but up. Exactly.
You got a better tag than me, boss.
That's true. That's true.
So, y'all excited for this combo? I will say this is how many appearances is this, Jason? Wow, that was so hard to say.
Four. Because I was on the first one, and then I was a short bit on the first callback episode, and then I was on the 50th one, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And then this one, So four.
Okay.
Four-timer.
Four-timer. And the only other person that's a four-timer is Hunter.
Mm-hmm. Or is it Hunter or Trevor?
Trevor's a three-timer.
Oh, Hunter's a four-timer also.
Actually, Trevor's a three-timer because he's hosted once, and then he's been on twice for his bag.
Okay. Well, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for those four-time jackalopes, the Jason Collins four-time jackalope.
Definitely.
It's a proper race to come up with a creative reason for you to be on again before Hunter. So you're our first 5-time guest.
For sure.
That's true.
I can be a guest host whenever Brad's out of town for his next trip to the beach. So
that's true. That can happen. Speaking of that, what a wild schedule we've had. We're back on the regular schedule, in case you all haven't noticed by now. Sorry about that. We had some tech difficulties.
Travel difficulties, posting difficulties. It's just a host of things. Now we're having AC difficulties. It's quite the time trying to get you guys this podcast. But trust me, we're back. We're here. So for those of you who are unaware, we have an amazing sponsor that helps make this whole thing possible. I'm repping them today. I'm actually repping one of my first pieces of Flippy disc golf apparel that I ever received. The Flippy Foundation Creators Cup jersey. Got my quack on the back. It is super comfortable. I love wearing it around the house. It is one of my go-to, I got to slap a shirt on real fast and we're just chilling at home for the rest of the day. I'm going to grab my Flippy disc golf shirt. Mm-hmm. And as I've been heading out into the actual sun, aka outside these past few days, and it is so humid, I've been wearing their Soul Pro material. Absolutely loving it. Feels super comfortable. Doesn't really as someone who, I don't know about the two of you, but I sweat a lot. If I think about going outside right now, I'm going to start sweating. And so having certain dry fit material still just gets so sticky to my skin. And I feel like I can't move as properly as I want to, which is not what you want to be thinking while you're trying to get them birdies out there. And the Soul Pro material that Flippy now has, incredible. And they have a host of new designs. So make sure you head over to flippydiscgolf.com if you're looking for a foundation in the bag, Robbie C, swanky disc golf collections, all on there under the creator section. Mm-hmm. Thank you to Aaron. Thank you to Flippy for making it possible. Bang.
They also have shorts, which I got my first pair of shorts, and they're actually two different kinds of shorts, the cloud shorts and the hybrid shorts. I think the cloud ones are more like the let's say like sweatpant material, soft shorts. But they're pretty nice as well. So I got my first set of shorts. You definitely decide.
Have to talk to Aaron.
I'll say that you need to size down because I'm a bigger guy, and I got what I thought would fit me. But it's the first time I've had to size down. So in the shorts.
I like mine. I've worn mine for disc golf a few times. Very comfortable. I love wearing mine for jiu-jitsu also, just for anybody that does any other activities like that, running, lifting little weights.
Do they have a liner?
No,
they
the
do
ones
not have a liner.
I think the two models I got, which I think are their only two models, don't have a liner.
But they do have pockets, which is nice.
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. So definitely, I'm gonna have to reach out to Aaron to get some shorts because right now I'm putting my shorts through the ringer because I cannot go outside and film without having to change outfits. So thankfully I have a lot of Flippy in my closet because I pretty much only wear them anyways, but I don't have Flippy shorts yet. So that's good to know. Fantastic. Well, y'all, are you ready to discuss the battle that went down?
Yeah. It was a very one-sided battle, let's be honest, but it was a battle nonetheless.
Not in the beginning. So for those of you who haven't seen it, a couple weeks ago, if you're a in the bag faithful, we did a draft of discs that we have sent out, and I drafted a bag for Jason. Brad drafted a bag for himself. They played against each other at Falling Creek, and we put the whole challenge on my channel, Robbie C Disc Golf, for you to check out. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see that battle, I'm not sure what's going to be the best way to consume both of these pieces of content, whether you pause right now, go watch the battle, or if you listen to this and then go watch the battle with all of the hindsight information to see what's going down. I mean, what would y'all pick?
I think either one's fine, personally. I think they're both applicable. Here it is. Spoilers. Ready? Spoilers. Stop the episode. Spoilers.
Right. If you don't want to get the spoiler, then go watch the round first.
We're going to talk immediately about it if you haven't guessed. It was a one-sided battle. Spoilers. Jason won. So there you go.
What? Dude, come on, Brad.
I know. I said spoilers way more times than I should have. So that's not my fault now. But yeah, it was really cool. I mean, although I did lose, I guess just overall, first of all, it was a really fun experiment. It was a lot of fun to do. But also I think the bag I picked was a good one. I just didn't use it well, if that is a fair statement. So I'm still, I wouldn't really change. I guess the one thing I would change that I did feel like I missed, if we want to start there, is that okay place to start?
Yeah, so I've got a series of questions. I full on prepared for this as if I was interviewing two people. This is the post game conference, like, you're sitting there with the coaches. All right, so tell me, the other team, they scored 75 points on you and you scored 4. What went wrong? Everything. No. Okay. So I've got a couple questions, and I want to approach it before we even get to the round. I want to approach with a couple like different perspectives of. So I want to start with Jason, and that is when we did this challenge, we did not tell you kind of knew this was happening, but you didn't know what bag you had, and we asked you to pick a course before you knew your bag. And Brad was drafting a bag for a course that he didn't know whether it was or not. We'll talk about that in a second. But you chose Falling Creek. We talked about on the episode that it might have been Timbrook. What kind of leaned you one way or the other?
Well, for starters, like, it was a total surprise, right? I didn't know you guys were going to do this at all. I was working the store that afternoon, and Brad's like, "Oh, by the way, we just drafted a bag and we're shooting a video in a couple weeks." I was like, "Fantastic." And he said, "I can't tell you what's in the bag, but you choose the course." And Timbrook is definitely my favorite one right now because it's not really long, but I knew there would be some drivers in the bag, and to get out there and actually rip it, because Timbrook, other than 13 for me, there's no hole you just grip and rip, not a single one. And for 13, not everybody has to do that, but I have to do that on 13. So that's why I chose Falling Creek, because this is my overall favorite course even to this day. I love Falling Creek. And so that's why it was when Brad and I first talked, I was like, I would lean towards Timbrook, but it's definitely Falling Creek.
Yeah, and to be fair, I definitely did draft my bag with Timbrook in mind. So that is where that hurt me a little bit.
Yeah, so that is what I was that was my follow-up question is, like, Brad, when you started drafting your bag, like, were you, because I know we had said Timbrook, were there certain holes that you were like, I'm going to need this disc for this hole, this disc for this hole, and then you kind of filled in the gaps, or what was kind of the strategy trying to draft around Timbrook?
So I really, regardless of what course we were going to, there were a couple discs I had my eyes on that I'm like, okay, these are just like staples that I'm going to need. Where I really made the mistake was not getting. We haven't recommended a lot of like approach discs, and I leaned heavily on those, especially for like a Timbrook, and even at Falling Creek, I thought the MX1 would fill the gap. It just didn't really. It was just different, it didn't fill the zone gap or whatever. So at the beginning, I knew I needed either the Envy, Uplink, Toro, Jackalope, some of my favorites, FD, and I had a feeling that if I didn't get the Like the uplink, I could put to use on a lot of different lines at Timbrook, especially when we get into the woods. And the MV, I just feel like if I don't have an MV, I'm toast at this point. I lean on it so heavily. So I kind of sacrificed the Toro, like that, really the only approach disc we had to go after those. And then really, I said hate draft uplink, but I wanted it too. And I kind of sacrificed the Jackalope. Now, if I'd known we were going to Falling Creek, I would have played that differently. I would have got the Jackalope for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Now I'm trying to remember Jackalope. Yeah, I know you used the Jackalope on. I think you used it on. No, what did you use on hole 2? Do you remember?
I use the Era.
Okay.
Because that's what I would throw anyway on that hole because it's open enough I can kind of flex it, and that's what I did. I flexed it kind of to the right side, right beside the tall grass, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But I've thrown the Jackalope there before, but since the Era was there, that's where I used the Era.
Yeah. So the Jackalope, looking at the bags that both of you have, my 2 questions were, what was a disc that you were, what was the disc that you were most excited to lean into while you were out there on the course? And then what was the disc that you thought you were going to lean into, but ended up not really utilizing? Because there's maybe some of these discs in the bag that you were like, I'm going to use it once and then check, like it's done. But what kind of, what did you know was going to be? And Brad, you kind of alluded to this with your answer, but maybe what was another disc that was like, oh, I'm definitely going to be ripping this thing a ton. And then you just didn't.
For me, it was the Mustang, to be honest. Like, I love the Mustang. It's not in my bag, but because I have other stuff kind of in that slot. But I love the Mustang. I threw it as, I think if I remember correctly, it was just a pitch up on number 6 or 7. I just kind of was like, okay, I have to use it. I want to have bag freedom, so I just chipped it up, and that's the only time I used it. So that was a little bit of a letdown. Again, Timbrook, I felt like I would use that a lot or use it multiple times, but at Fallen Creek, I just didn't have a spot where I really felt comfortable using it.
Yeah, and for those who haven't watched the video yet, we only played 10 holes, so that was a limiting factor because we had a time constraint on how many holes we could play. If we'd played 18 holes, we both would have thrown more of these shots, especially at Falling Creek, because the back 9 at Falling Creek is much harder than the front 9. So I would have similarly, both of us, I think, would have scrambled a lot more on the back 9 because there's more trees. So. So for me, the one I knew, like I think you guys even knew that, the Origin is the one that when I talk to people about a disc I need, they always say the Origin. Robbie said it for a while. So and I threw it once in practice beforehand. I'm like, oh yeah, it's great, and it's been in the bag since that first throw. And so the Origin I knew I expected to like, and I like a lot. I even got a pink one, so I can start beating it in because my bag is pink, but the blue one's still flying well. The one, I guess, for the one that I would maybe have thrown more but didn't. Was well, it's 2 and one's a caveat. The Pure, but I end up putting with the Pure because I've never really thrown a Pure. But since we don't have putting putters for this challenge, I putted with the Pure. So I didn't throw that at all that day. So because I had the Proxy for that line. But my answer would be the Proxy. The Proxy is a disc that's in my bag already. And I think I threw the Proxy once or twice, and the first one was a bad throw on hole 2. I had a great shot on Era and overthrew the Proxy, right? Which normally I should kind of just dump it to the basket. So I didn't throw the Proxy as much as I thought I would, especially at Falling Creek. But the Pure I need to get out there and throw just because I think I'll like it as well.
Very interesting. Okay. So I like that on both of these, we're talking about those shorter range discs, the mids and the putters. And I think that makes a ton of sense, especially seeing Falling Creek Reds. If you are not familiar, haven't watched Foundation content before, really there's only, I'm trying to think, hole 2, hole 4. That's really kind of the only like crusher holes on the front 9, or the front 10 that we played. And so and both of those are par 4s.
Yep.
Soft par 4s, but par 4s nonetheless. Yep. And so that makes it super interesting. You can kind of get away with whatever it may be. So looking at the situation that you had, one of you was drafting for yourself, but you don't know the course you're in. The other was just picking a course, not knowing what kind of bag you're playing with. in hindsight, which position would you have rather been in? Would you rather have kept your position of picking the course, Jason, or would you rather have drafted your own bag? And then vice versa to Brad, would you like to stay where you're at, or would you have rather picked the course?
I know this is a boring answer, but I still would like the course. Part of this because the confidence level on Falling Creek that I feel like I know it well enough and it's forgiving enough on the front nine. Drafting disc would be fun, but I still just don't have that deeper detailed knowledge y'all have. That would have been the funner, if that's the right word, right? I'd had more fun getting to draft disc, but you guys talk about a number of discs throughout the, your 56 episodes, right? Or 54, whatever it is. So you guys talk a lot about disc, and I don't have that knowledge, so I maybe be wrongly or drafting improperly or poorly. And so from a fun perspective, getting to choose the course I like, I would have stuck with that.
I think I would have, not because I wanted to pick the course, but I think Robbie, I'd have been very curious, and maybe we can talk about this. Maybe this is one of your comments or questions, maybe, but I would have liked to see, my bag drafting. What would you have done different for me, Robbie? You've seen me play enough that I think you have an idea of like how I throw, what my strengths and weaknesses are. Would you have drafted my bag differently? So I would have been very interested to see what bag you would have drafted for me.
Yeah. Like we could in a reverse. Like I could draft for Brad, or I could draft for, or similarly, I could draft for me and let Robbie draft for you and see how it goes. So.
The rematch or the sequel?
Yeah. I feel like if we did the rematch, the only way to make it the most fair though is that we both draft and then Brad picks the course at random. So that's, if you want to run to Timbrook, you can, but that way we don't have an advantage in drafting while I go through. And then Brad just decides to be super cruel and he's like, all right, we're playing Independence Longs. Here we go.
I would not do that to myself. I might say Manita though. That would be the fun. I like Manita. It doesn't get enough street cred.
I've never played Manita, so that is fair. Now, one of the questions that we ask when people come on the show is we ask them about their bag. We ask what their greatest strength is. But in the interview process where people are applying, one of the questions we ask is, what area of your bag do you feel least confident in, as well as what area of your bag do you feel most confident in? So looking at the bag that y'all had, what area of your bag before you started the round did you feel most confident in? And then afterwards, what area did you feel least confident in?
I'll go first because I felt, and I was, the answer stays the same both ways. But even when I saw the bag, that my answer would be this. But I was playing really well at that time too, so it all worked together. But the mids, because I have a truth, and we use my truth, and I love the truth a lot, and the origin I love a lot. And I know the Toro's a putt and approach, but it's almost like a mid for me as well for shorter stuff. So, and I've thrown the Toro, and all three of those I was very confident even before me playing really well. Then I played bad today, but that would be where I say my confidence is the longer putt and approach, not short putt and approach, but long, 4-speed to 6-speed, right? 4-speed to 5-speed. I'm very happy and very comfortable and confident in those.
And he loves a Nebula. Favorite disc.
Loves it.
It just, we talked about Discraft molds just don't fit my hand. It's just fine. So the thing I was least confident in for this bag was overstable, the Bear, right? I have one overstable disc, like really overstable disc in my bag, and it's a Raptor, and I don't throw it that often right now. If I'm throwing flat really well, it'll come out more. Because even the Era is only like a 1.5. It's like a -1, 1.5. We were looking at yesterday because I was thinking about doing something other than the Era, and I always thought it was more than a 1.5 because it's that stable for me. But the stable fairway, because I don't carry a stable fairway in my bag, even on a normal day, even though I should. Because again, the Raptor's like a driver for me, not a fairway. So the Bear would be the most the least confidence, and I only threw it once that day. And honestly, I got lucky. It was on hole 7. I would normally throw the jackalope outright to crash, and I threw it. The stability got me, but it swung through the tree somehow, right? So I've acknowledged that was luck more than it was skill, and I'm thankful for that because it could have easily hit a limb or tree and dropped where it did.
Yeah. It's hard because I feel so not confident about this bag after how I played. So I'm going to try to lean into it. I think going into it, I felt pretty fine with everything. Really everything. I felt pretty good with everything really, but the MX1, I didn't know like how that was going to, because I wasn't using it as a mid range. I was using it as like my approach forehand disc, which I lean on a lot.
Yeah.
So that I was not confident with that, or like the bullet. That's what I elected for my like kind of straight to understable throwing putter, which it turned out not to be that way, and I barely threw it. So walking in, I was like, man, I feel good with really everything minus the MX1. But I think coming out of it, I was so unconfident. I was not confident with my mid ranges at all. Because even the uplink, I love the uplink, but I lost some trust with it like a month or so ago, and I haven't been throwing it a lot. The good thing about the video is I like fell in love with the uplink again, so that was nice to be reunited there. But yeah, I just didn't feel great about my mid range selection at all.
Yeah. And I like knowing your game, I'm looking at your like your 7 speeds and faster,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel very close to, outside of not having the jackalope. I feel like it's very picturesque of what your bag, like what's
Mm-hmm.
in your bag already.
Right.
So it's very interesting having the balance between the two of, you've got Jason feeling really good putters or mids and down, and Brad has what he's looking for and what he normally throws on fairways and up, and that contrast. And once again, the course that was selected, it turns out like there's only a few holes that having those faster discs was really helpful. And I know you've talked about your FD was it's your farthest flying disc in your bag. You said it before on the show, but this was a different FD, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah. So, and this wasn't like a stipulation, but I wanted to do this. All because like I bag an NV, I bag an uplink, I bag a Thunderbird sometimes, I bag an FD, I bag a sail. None of those that I bagged that day were the ones that are actually in my bag. So they were all new discs to me. I wanted to still have like an element of like surprise. So the FD I chose was a C line, which is what we actually recommended, not an S line, which is what I bag. I bagged 2 S lines, and actually I bag a C line too, just for some wind sort of issues. But yeah, I threw a C line, which I'm definitely not as confident in, and
Okay.
wasn't as like familiar with. Like again, my S line is beat in enough that it actually will flip up for me. I can also give it like a touch of Annie; it'll still come back a little bit. The C line definitely had a little bit more stability, as much as a FD can, than I was like used to.
Okay. So knowing both of y'all's disc golf careers are on the shorter side, we'll say, because but Jason, you're a COVID golfer as well, right?
Yep. April of 21. So 2.5 years, a little less than 2.5 years.
So seeing that, we talk about Griffin discs on this show quite often of, okay, I have this really Brad's Vulture, great example of this. So having discs that you've beat in and you know how they fly, and maybe even you can kind of connect with this, Jason, for the Origin, now that you've thrown the pink Origin compared to, because for this challenge, we just kind of tried to find discs for the background information for listeners. We grabbed discs that we could find, so that way we weren't like rummaging through the shelves like, all right, here we go, 20 brand new discs, game on. So I brought an Origin that was straight out of my bag and gave that to Jason for him to use during the challenge. And so looking at these comparisons, how was it taking a disc or a mold that you're familiar with, that you know, that you trust, and then throwing a new one? Because this is probably some of the first time that y'all have done this with molds that you've really started to fall in love with, I'm guessing, other than maybe you've lost some. So talk to me about that kind of journey.
I think definitely for me, I mean, we all know at this point, if you're in the back listener, my Eclipse Envy is not a normal Eclipse Envy at this point. And then I don't really even throw a lot of neutron other than the uplink. So like I threw a soft neutron Envy for the challenge, and it's really interesting. You know, I thought it was just like the mold that I'm in love with the Envy. I'm just kind of in love with that particular Envy, and then I have another like Griffin Envy that flips up. That's a beat-in electron one. So it's really interesting. I still love the Envy. I just had to learn how to use it. I use it very differently, and I guess maybe that's answering your question, Robbie.
Yeah.
Like finding those, even the FD, like it still felt very good in my hands. So it felt familiar. So I had the subconscious confidence you talk about, Robbie, with like the actual like feel in the hand, which is big for me. But I had to really like mentally get out of, okay, this is not my FD in my bag. This is a whole different one. Like this is going to fly differently. So I think from a confidence perspective of like, hey, I know what sort of type of shot this is going to be, and I know how this feels and about how far this flies for me. That all still applies, but I think it does. It was a little deceptive on a few shots that I threw out of maybe I probably should have chosen different discs because yes, I realize that mine are more of like the Griffin style. They're beat in. They're not like new off the shelf, and they fly a little differently.
Yeah, so for me, it was I was lucky enough to use some discs from my bag that I had thrown before. The only disc that the proxy was the proxy that's in my bag, and the jackalope was the one that's in my bag. But I've thrown a handful of jackalopes now. Like when we did the worst shot doubles, Robbie, I just grabbed Brad's bag that day and threw his jackalope, and it felt exactly the same, right? So I think the jackalope, and granted they were beat in, but a jackalope, whether it's Apex or Eternal or haven't thrown any of their glow stuff yet, I think the jackalope I'll be happy with whatever it is because that mold just fits my hand really well. And of course, its beat inness will dictate how I would throw it if I'm throwing well. I don't, and this is people love Discraft. I don't, in general, like Discraft plastic. So the Nebula is what the Nebula
Except
is. Between the feel and the plastic, I don't, in general, like it. Though I will do a quick shout out. Those Buzz 20-year discs are amazing. I'm not a Buzz guy at all. Great. I mean, they're wasp, right? I mean, they're wasp. But a wasp tool disc, and I didn't realize that till Brad and Hunter and Trevor all told me that. I'm like, wow, because we did a warehouse guys throw. This is not part of this discussion anyway, but the Buzz, that was amazing because I'm not a Discraft guy. So I went, unfortunately, I went in biased, total disclosure, went in biased, and that maybe affected my opinion about the Nebula. And it was more stable than I thought it was going to be for my throwing style. The Toro I threw that day was a Star, and I'd never actually thrown that Birdie Fam Toro, but I love the way the Toro feels, and I'd thrown a Champion Toro a few times. And so I like Star plastic. So it's another easy one. I'm so much more of a plastic guy. Let's like if the plastic feels good, which I know a lot of people say it feels good in the hand, but that gives me confidence, right? If I like the way the Star feels or the way Supreme plastic feels, So those things help for sure in my mind. And then the G Star, the Mamba, I'd never thrown the Mamba. The plastic was good, but it has like to me a shallower rim. So that affected my mind because I'd thrown it a couple of times beforehand and it was early release. So, but when we played that day, I actually got a clean release. I've thrown it since then. I early released it again. So I was just happy on camera. We caught me actually throwing that disc okay. So,
which is funny because I was like, Jason, I think you're going to, because I was trying to hype up the Origin with him too. We were talking about it like the week or two before, ironically enough. And I was like, he's like, what disc do you think I'm going to like? I said, I think you're going to fall in love with that G-Star Mamba. So I was completely wrong.
Yeah, it feels great, but I just can't release it well. And of course, we already said the Origin. I love the Neoplastic. The Origin's fantastic. I mean, you're the one you gave me so beat in. It turns right really well. So it is that spot between my uplink and my hex. But a newer Origin could kick out a new hex, right? So I could have multiple Origins. I don't want to kick out the hex because that's still my favorite disc right now. But yeah, so it's I don't other than the conscious / unconscious bias of the Nebula, everything else I went in pretty open about it because I just like the way that thankfully the plastics we had were plastics I liked.
Okay. Let us know in the comments what's your G-Star Mamba? What's the disc that you're like, man, this is going to be hype, this is going to be great, and you just cannot seem to throw it well. For me, it was the Raptor. Like I really wanted to love the Raptor. I mean, Jason, big Air Force guy. I was like, yeah, I'm a Raptor guy. That's way easier than a Firebird. I have one less Innova driver in my bag. Here we go. Stick it to the man. And every time I threw a Raptor, I just felt like it was either I was so dedicated to not letting it slip out early that I just pulled it super hard left, or I mean, it was just fluffy because it came out so early. Yeah. So
mine's the MD3. I love how it feels. I love what it's supposed to do. I love when everybody else throws it, but I just cannot throw it well.
Oh man. I mean, I'm telling you, I saw Hunter post that reel yesterday and I commented knowing like based on how much he's thrown that blue C-line MD3 that he's like, oh yeah, it's super neutral. It just flips up and does it every time. And then the guys make fun of him because it doesn't do that. And so seeing that they made it in an S-line, I thought.
It's pretty sick.
Interessante. Okay, so if I want to, before we dive in, because I kind of want to walk through the round, because I think it's something that we talk about discs all the time on In the Bag, but the mental game, the mental side of it is an aspect of coaching that I really love to do, but I feel like we didn't get to necessarily we don't get to dive into it very often because there's not tangible evidence of, oh, this is how you played with these discs. This is what you were doing with these discs. We're kind of just relying on the guests to walk us through that process. So before we dive into that, though, I would ask, are there any like final thoughts on the bags overall? / what would you? It's tough because Brad mentioned it. Like, we drafted off of discs we sent. So some of the holes or gaps you saw or things might be because we just literally have not recommended that to a person yet. Like, I would think we're going to recommend a whole lot more overstable putting approaches. But the more that I think about that, we preach so often that people should have that disc in their bag that most often someone's showing up with a zone or a pig or whatever that is already in their bag. So it's hard for us to make that recommendation. So Brad, I know that may be your answer, but like, is there any one disc that you have in your bag that you're like, I would pull this out and here's what, if I had access to anything, here's what I would throw in instead?
Yeah. I mean, I think I said already, my biggest mistake was not drafting the Toro, because I need that disc. Like I do a lot of stuff with that. And I also like I've thrown the Toro many times, and I like it on backhand, and I don't typically like a zone on backhand. So I like it on forehand and backhand. It was really silly of me not to draft that. Literally, and then kick the MX one out. I like the MX one. Let's be clear about that. It just, I used it. I was trying to use it for that overstable approach, and it did not work for that at all. So I would boot that, and I would definitely put in the Toro.
Yeah, I would be. I mean, it's no surprise. I would take the Nebula out because I already have the Origin and Truth, but I would put in a Strider. And a Strider is technically a fairway driver as listed, but it's a 6-speed. So that would be my overstable mid. For me, that would be, I throw the Strider like a mid, and I've been loving the Strider lately. I hold 2 at Timbrook today. I was like within 8 feet, and yesterday I parked it because I cleared the trees, right? But if I have a wide open space for the stability of the Strider, I love the Strider right now. So the Nebula would go out and the Strider would come in, and 500 plastic is what I'm throwing in because I like that plastic.
So we're getting rid of Prodigy out of one bag and putting it straight into the other. I love it. So Strider, is that the one that has like the camel with the helicopter back? Yeah. Okay.
We had so many at the warehouse. I was like, I'll try one out. And for me, it's super stable, right? For other people, it won't be but it's a stability. I don't ever throw it on Annie. I throw it purely on Heiser stability. I haven't tried to do an Annie flex on it. It's always a crash disc for me, and it's very dependable. It's like a pig, but I just throw it further than I throw my pig. The way I depend on that pig to always have a clean Heiser crash flight, my Strider just goes, I throw it harder, so it goes further.
So hole 2, you're throwing the big Heiser out to the right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Over the
really
water
high
the whole
and
way.
Just get over the trees and go right. Yesterday I got right by the basket, and today I was like right over the trees, but it's like a 10-foot putt. So
nice. Okay. Yeah. So here's what I want to do. Y'all let me know if this is okay. I'm going to give like a narrative to each hole and then ask your thoughts based on how that hole seemed to have went. Or some of the questions will be like, before walking into the hole kind of a deal. If that works for y'all.
I think it's great.
Good.
So hole 1, this is another spoilers. So if you are watching this or if you're listening to this first, hindsight information for sure. So hole 1, kind of a tale of two cities. We have Brad doesn't get off the tee very well at all. Sends one straight into the tree. Jason throws a pure shot, but sails it past the basket. So neither of you really looking at solid birdie putts just because of distance or clutter being in the way. How are we feeling? Hole 1 always has a lot of nerves to it, no matter if you're playing with friends casually or if you're playing on camera. How are you feeling after the tee shots of hole 1?
Well, for me, I'm just like, why? I always feel this way when I try to throw the Heiser line around the tree, because it has like a 20% success rate for me. And I always think I can do it. Now the problem is when I do it, I park the basket. But that's the mental problem, right? I can easily just chuck a forehand and get there and get like a 20-foot putt and give myself a birdie look 80% of the time, but it's not as fun. So I just was like, I was just going for the meme. I just wanted to go around the tree. If I didn't, I was going to throw it into the tree, and it looked really funny. So wasn't feeling great. Jason started trash talk immediately after that throw, and he said I wouldn't get up and down for par. Well, spoiler, I did do that. And that the MX1 did fair for me on that particular forehand up shot. So shout out to the MX1, even though I trashed it this whole episode so far.
Now, if you watch the video, I didn't say you're not going to do it. I just said, you just said it wasn't easy up and down for par. I was like, I don't know if it's easy. I didn't say you weren't. I on camera, I even said, I never said you weren't going to.
But it was easy. I did get it. It was a tap in.
This is true. He backed it up. I was trying to just poke the bear to see what I could get going that day.
Bear's poked. Consider bear poked.
So for me, I was obviously pleasantly surprised because I threw that disc exactly how I meant to, and it went a lot further than I expected because that was the first time I'd really ripped on it. And so from that throw, I was like, wow, I think I even got on camera. I'm like, that's going in the bag. I love that disc. Mm-hmm. And I was putting confidently during those couple weeks stretch. So even with the pure, when I went to my putt, I was like, what's a long putt? But I was confident. I think I hit cage or something, but I was happy. Like after I knew with that throw, I'm like, okay, I'm throwing okay today, and I feel okay today. And that disc flew great for me.
And I knew I was in trouble because he was on. I could tell already. So, and he had a vendetta. Like he has not won a challenge on either of the channels yet. So he was out for blood.
Yep.
That's the truth. Okay, so we go to hole 2. It is a 400-foot par 4. So for breaking down distance, you only need really 2 200-foot shots, and you're parked. Drives, I would say Brad's drive there doesn't go amazing, but it's not bad by any means. Like
wrong disc choice.
Yeah, but it's fine. Like you're middle of the fairway. Brad makes a great approach, puts it under the basket, and then Jason overcooks it like he talked about earlier with the proxy, juices it way past the basket. Brad's got a 1-stroke lead heading into hole 2. How are both of you feeling in that moment?
For me, I was like, okay, maybe I'm getting warmed up a little bit.
Yeah.
There's something about, like you said, getting the first hole out of the way, and then I don't know, being able to like open up on one throw. I just feel like it warms stuff up a little bit, gets some like muscles loosened up, and I felt good with my Envy. Like I did an approach shot with the Envy, just like a nice little hyzer with it, and it all felt good. I'm like, okay, maybe I remember how to play disc golf. Spoilers for now.
I had the same thought about Brad because when he got that birdie and recovered from the easy par on hole 1, I was like, it could, right? He could get momentum going because I played enough with Brad that sometimes when the confidence momentum hit, it just starts rolling. So that was I was not nervous. I was like, okay, this could turn out bad for me because I could just par everything and Brad could birdie everything because almost every hole we play is birdieable. But I threw my proxy well. I just put it too flat and not enough hyzer. So even that, after that, I'm like, all my throws I was actually happy with. It was just a missed throw. So I wasn't going, oh, man, I totally messed that up. I'm like, I actually threw it pretty well, just wrong.
Yeah, and I think even for me, when you threw your error, I was like, okay, he's on today.
Felt good for sure for me
because I know you've kind of had like your ups and downs with that disc.
Yeah. And that era gets it is a full flex out of that disc. Like, and I don't even know if you can call it a flex. It felt like it was more of a, were you trying to flex it or did it just kind of turn on its own?
I was trying to throw flat to Annie to flex it a little bit. If I really give it in a headwind, it'll just stay straight. Not crazy far, but like up to 300, right? I was trying to flex it. For sure.
Okay. That's always the certain discs. Some people throw intentional flex lines, and then other people you can just like hit a disc hard enough that it turns automatically. So
the era, if I'm throwing well, I can have it flip up a little, but it'll turn back left a lot harder. So like hole 11, if we played hole 11 when I'm throwing well, that's what I would do. A little bit of a flip up, but let the hyzer come down. But I was trying to flex that one. So
okay. So Brad teased it. Spoiler alert. Hole 3, disaster strikes. Got a 1-stroke lead coming into it. Early release into a tree. I I don't even know if I can call it an early release. Just
I just threw it into the tree. I threw it into the tree.
Well, a miscommunication. I'm talking about the next shot. A miscommunication between the hand and the mind of trying to throw a forehand.
And
that thing, yeah, that thing was moving in the wrong direction before it was even with his body to throw said forehand. Brad ends up scrambling, and we get a 2-stroke swing. So now instead of having a 1-stroke lead, Brad, you are down a stroke coming out of hole 3.
Mm-hmm.
How are we feeling at this moment?
Not great. So I mean, really, that gap, I usually hit that gap, but I mean, sometimes you just don't get out of that gap on a hole 3. So that like didn't shake me that much. I think what shook me a little bit, it like really tanked my confidence. Because I wasn't going to throw the sail, but Robbie, I've seen you throw the sail on that like Annie forehand before. Like it just is beautiful. I'm like, maybe this is the shot I need. I shouldn't have thrown that. I've never practiced that shot. I've never tried to throw that shot. And also, I forgot sweat is a thing. I also forgot that I had like usually use a dry sack or a chalk ball. Just didn't do that. So I tried to chop this Annie forehand with an understable disc with a like hand that was drenched in sweat. And like once it came up like closer to my ear, like it was already going backwards while my hand was going forward. So I don't know what the heck happened. And I don't know. It just made me like really doubt my whole life as a disc golfer, as like a human. So like that wasn't great. I feel like I scrambled okay. It could have been a lot worse than it was. And I don't know. I just don't love it like going from such a hole that I was like, man, I played that hole really well to wow, I may never play a hole that terrible again in my life. It was just, it really messed with me.
It was tough to watch. I played a lot of rounds with Brad, and I'm usually the one who has a bad shot, and I've never had a release like that. I've grip locked really bad into the tree that's 5 feet in front of me, but that sweaty hand slipped out of the hand. I felt bad. Then I had to laugh a little bit. Then I had to trash talk a little bit, but I really felt bad because that's tough.
Yeah.
Like, what's a 1 in 1,000 time you'll ever do that? Like, you'll never do that again.
I don't think you've ever seen me throw a shot that bad. It was bad. But hey, those of you who are listening out there, it's okay to throw a bad shot. Yep. You still like disc golf. I promise.
And the bounce back it truly was incredible because he's in a bush and he throws a patent pending uplink turnover that was amazing to get back to the fairway, lay it up under the basket, take the 5, walk away. So the bounce back, very solid. Whether Brody agrees with it being a real stat or not, that's up for another debate. But the bounce back on that shot alone, incredible. Jason, in it, you kind of dialogue I could pick up 2 strokes here, but you decide to lay it up.
Yep.
Walk us through that.
Yeah, because I throw my jackalope, my eternal jackalope, to a place I would normally throw. If I'm throwing really well, I could maybe get it pin high, but I was maybe 20, 25 feet away. But I was up left, and for those who've watched it, it's on a hill. So if I run it and miss it, I could go glide down the hill. I could hit the basket and roll down the hill. And I was playing to win. I mean, it is a competition, right? We're not out there just to have fun and make funny content. Someone's got to win, and I wanted to win. So I dumped it underneath the basket, which is also what I learned from Robbie. Robbie's like, take the par, don't be a hero. Knowing we had 8 more, 7 more holes to go, I'm like, that 1 stroke I saved there could be good.
Totally. So we go to the next hole. I think knowing, okay, his confidence off the tee is a little shook right now because the next shot is this like open, booming downhill. It's another like, I think it's only like 386 or something like that. But it's downhill for lots of the way. So Jason rips the Mamba off the tee. Brad throws lower than hoping. So it kind of like burns into the ground. But once again, nobody's in a terrible position. Brad throws his upshot, puts it a little past the basket and underneath a tree. Yep. So not a great position to be putting from. Jason throws his upshot and he is pretty easy, knows he's going to take the 3 on it. Brad, you're under the tree. What's going through your mind here?
Yeah. Well, if we can go back to the tee shot for a second.
Yeah.
I intentionally I chose the FD to get it in the fairway.
Okay.
Because normally I can park that hole. I mean, I can get pin high on the hole. I do it all the time. But I disc down to the FD because I lost confidence in the sail, even though this is not even the same shot. I was like, okay, I just need to FD. I need to get out in the middle of the fairway so I can get an upshot. Again, to your point, upshot wasn't great. It kind of skipped down the hill under the tree. I don't know. I feel like when it comes down to it, like the putting aspect, like if I need to put pressure on myself, like putting green is where I can. So I wanted to make sure that I was like, okay, I cannot miss this putt. And even though it wasn't, I mean, what was I, maybe 20 feet? 20,
Yeah, I would say between 20 and 25, but like very obstructed.
Yeah, under the tree. But again, I feel pretty okay doing like a weird step out. I don't know if I was on a knee or I was like straddle. I can't remember. But no, I felt okay, even though these weren't my normal putters. I was putting with a sensei. I think anything within that 20-foot range or so, I feel pretty confident with about any disc. It doesn't matter what type of disc it is. So I was like, I've got to make this putt. If he gets another stroke on me, then I'm going to have a really hard time coming back from it.
Okay, so he makes the putt, and that's where I want to spin it to Jason. Jason, were you watching him thinking I'm definitely getting a stroke on him? Like, was it shocking that he made the putt, or have you played enough and you have enough warehouse putt experience that you knew there's a chance he's making this?
Yeah, it wasn't shocked. I mean, I was hoping he didn't make it because I need all the help I can get, to be honest, right? But no, I wasn't surprised that he made the putt. So I knew, because I think he putted before. Did I putt before him? I can't remember. I think I knew that I was going to. I needed to make my putt no matter what, whether he hit it or not. But knowing that, expecting him to hit it, and that's what you should do anyway in competition. Expect your partner, your competition, to hit the putt as you're planning for yours. So I wasn't surprised.
Okay. So we go to hole 5, short little uphill. It's like 215 feet. Protected green, have to hit a gap through a tree line that is, if it's 215 to the basket, it's 200 feet to the tree line. It's right there. Brad's tee shot, that into the hill, doesn't give it the height that he's looking for. So it feels like just a case at this point in the journey is Brad is either late releasing or early releasing lots of things during this shot. Jason, we're going to go to you first. You actually put it about 18 feet away from the basket, had a pretty clear look at it. Your turnaround, you're seeing Brad's in the fairway. Is this an opportunity where you're telling yourself, all right, I'm just going to drain this putt? Definitely picking a stroke up on him here.
From where I was at, I hoped I would. I thought I would with how I had been putting. So, and I had a direct look at it, but I missed that putt. So, spoiler.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went up to it. So I was a little disappointed. I knew I was playing well, right? So it's, confidence is a good thing. So even though I missed that putt, it was a good stroke, and I threw it. I putted the way I, in my mind, should have putted, right? I didn't go, oh, wow, I pulled that right. So it's easier to stay upbeat when the confidence is there. But yes, when I went to it, I was like, I need to do this because it's starting to slowly put maybe some nails in the coffin a little early. So, but I didn't.
Okay. And then Brad, you are seeing, okay, he's up there. He's putting well. We know that. How are you feeling on this upshot that you got here?
Do you recall what disc I threw off the tee, Robbie?
I think you either went envy or bullet into the hill.
Yeah, I think it was a bullet. It seems like it was a bullet.
I think it was bullet.
See, like that, just again, going back to the tee shot, I think this is where I was feeling that like mid-range, like lack of confidence maybe a little bit, because I would have probably, like my normal bag, thrown like a lobster or a dune, like just something straight that I know has some glide. I don't have to kill it to get up there. But I think the bullet, I felt like I had to kill to get there. And I didn't. Realistically, I should have thrown the Mustang. Yeah. There's no reason I shouldn't have thrown the Mustang. But I also know I can get a flip up envy there too. So again, knowing the envy and what I can do with it, but this was not that envy. And like, I'm like, well, I can't throw this envy. So I'll try the bullet to get a straighter flight. I should have just thrown the Mustang. So the theme, there's a lot of like disc selection that was not great on my part that I think really, if I look back, contributed to me losing some strokes that I really shouldn't have. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I wasn't really worried about Jason's putt. I was like, man, I've got to try to figure out a way to make this putt for myself. I wasn't really worried about him at the moment.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally. So Brad throws great upshot, pures the gap, leaves himself a bit of a putt, makes the putt. Jason obviously misses his putt, so no strokes gained or lost here. Still a 1-stroke gain. Hole 6, we're going to move past just because hole 6, you have Jason walks into it knowing, hey, I think it's one of the funniest banter moments of the hole because Jason's like, yeah, normally here I'm going to throw my uplink, but I don't have an uplink. And so Jason plays for the easy 3, which opens up the window for Brad. Brad throws the uplink shot, and it is one of the prettiest shots in the whole video. Stands up, turns over, drifts a little too much, hits a tree line. Brad's got a long look at it. So turns out 3 for both of you. Then we head to hole 7. Stockheiser around the tree. You both have overstable discs that you can throw here. Jason, you've mentioned it a little bit. Felt like you got lucky through the trees.
Yep.
You're both staring at about the same putt. In fact, it's a banter moment on the video of like who's actually closer. What's going through your heads here? 1-stroke game. You're both seeing the distance of, okay, it's a putt off.
For me, I was thinking, honestly, I walked up that putt not confident I was going to make it because the disc flew differently. I was happy to be where I was at, but I'm usually where Brad was at. And that's because I usually throw my eternal jackalope that I throw enough hyzer, it comes all the way around and ends up essentially where Brad is at, sometimes a little further if I get a good glide. So I've never actually gone between those other 2 trees the way I did with the bear. And so I was not as confident as I've been in my putting. I wasn't like, I'm not going to make it, but I didn't go up going, oh, I'm going to nail this. I'm like, oh, wow. I got it. I like in my mind, I was like, I got to nail this because Brad's going to nail it because I'm talking so much trash about it right now. So, and then when I hit it, I was like, well, maybe that messed him up enough. But I wasn't 100% confident because I talked so much trash on that hole. So
that was motivation. I was not going to miss that putt for anything. No, I think for me, if I was going back, I probably would have rather had your putt, Jason. Mine, I felt very scared for mine.
Yeah, because yours is downhill behind it, right?
Yeah,
it goes down.
Robbie, I mean, every time I land on that side of the hill, I think of that moment when you did your like little easy putt, hit the cage in the snow,
the ice.
And rolled like 300 feet the opposite direction. I'm like, that's going to be me, but not in the snow, so it's not going to be nearly as funny. But I was like, man, I just didn't like because it's like kind of a downhill putt. But
you're not flat.
Also,
like even you're standing, you're not flat. You're kind of on that hill standing. And so
something I've learned about my game a lot is if my footing is like uneven, I have my probability for misthrowing goes up like 40%. Like I just am not as confident. So I didn't feel super confident, but like Jason said, he was talking a lot of trash, so I had to make it in his face. So yeah, we very good putts. We both had very good putts on that hole. Yeah. So I usually play that hole. I think I threw a Raptor. I usually throw my Vulture or something around the same fashion. The Vulture just goes a little farther for me. So I think pretty stock shot for me. And I know like hole 3 seems like where I really blew up, but I think my biggest mistake on the whole round was the next hole because it was like hole 3 has a lot of probability on that gap. Like you're going to hit it. Yeah. I had a goofy throw with the forehand sail, but I really screwed up the next hole. Like that was like, I put the nail in my own coffin on this next hole.
Because hole 8, 200 feet, dead straight. And there is pretty much nothing standing in your way. Like the right side is a little tight on it, so you can't go like swooping hyzer on it. But you can honestly go like a little bit of a baby hyzer if you throw straight at the basket and just land left of the basket. So pretty straightforward hole. Jason has the box, throws
Origin
right down there.
Another confirmation that disc is going in the bag. So
yeah,
it was a great shot.
I went past the basket. So
yeah, because at that point you both had disc freedom. So one of the rules to the challenge was you can't. You have to throw all of the discs throughout the round. For every disc you don't throw, you're going to take a stroke penalty. So you both have the freedom at this point. Because Jason threw his bear and unlocked his. Brad unlocked bag freedom on hole 6. Jason got it on 7. And heading into that hole, Jason's past the basket. Brad, what's going through your mind on that tee shot?
I knew that moment was like my tee box decision and throw is going to determine if I have a chance to come back or not. So I knew, and I don't know why. I feel like if there's a putting pressure, approach pressure, I feel great with. It doesn't bother me. Tee box pressure, and it's maybe just like where I'm feeling like less confident. Again, I've changed my grip. I've changed a little bit how I'm throwing. I'm continually trying to get better at that. I think I just don't have a lot of confidence off the tee anymore. So it's causing me to make the wrong disc decision. It's not the disc, it's me, just to be clear. What I should have done, I mean, there's several things I should have done before what I actually did, to be fair. I think I ended up throwing the NV on backhand, right?
Yep.
And I played it too far right because again, that was a newer NV. I didn't have the confidence in the hand with it. I knew I had to give it a little bit more swing to come back in. So I ended up throwing it into like the creek basically on the right hand side. I could have easily, and I forehand NVs all the time. I could have easily forehanded that NV and parked the basket. I could have easily thrown the Mustang very straight and parked the basket. I could have forehanded the MX1. I could have forehanded the Raptor. Like, there's a ton of things I should have done other than just throw that MV into the trees. And I knew that was going to be my error too. Like, I knew the error was going to be throwing it too wide.
Well, that was the hole too. Is the one you were originally had Mustang out, and it's longer than 200, Robbie. It's like 240. Not that makes a big difference, but he had the Mustang out. We're like, dude, even I would cook. It's more touchy to have a good shot with the Mustang because Brad could definitely bomb the Mustang. If I can throw the Mustang forward, Brad can. And so the NV was. I still think the NV, maybe the uplink would have been a better play because I mean I throw an uplink for me. I threw the. For me, that hole is either origin, a hex, or an uplink, depending on how I'm feeling that day. But I've thrown the uplink a ton, out left, let it slowly drift. And so, but an NV is the same way if you have confidence in that NV you had. So I think Robbie and I both said it, even though the throw didn't turn out well, we're like, that was the right call over the Mustang for that hole. So
yeah, probably the uplink was the better play, maybe the most probable, because again, with the uplink, I can just kind of toss it and have a lot of control and just get there. Yep. Versus like trying to force the NV to flex or, Mustang, I would have been way long.
Right. You'd had to put so much lightness on it that it probably would have gone left a lot further than you maybe would want if you went 2 nose up.
Yeah. So I think my tee box decision and my misthrow off the tee was really like solidified Jason was going to win. I knew after I threw that throw that there was like a 5% chance I could come back. And it wasn't going to be me playing well. I would have been me playing really well and birdieing out and Jason making a really big mistakes, which he just wasn't doing that day.
Yeah, totally fair. Jason, so you see Brad rip it into the tree and he's got a circle 2 look at this basket. What are you thinking in this moment?
Well, I'm thinking I have this for the win, but I said in my mind I needed to nail the putt to just kind of slowly put it more out of reach. But I'll be honest, after I threw that, because the origin was just flying so well that day, like my confidence was like at the top. I'm like, I'm gonna walk up and make this putt, whether I'm 10 feet or 20 feet, I'm gonna make this putt. That's how I felt because that throw was. I was so happy with the origin that day that it gave me crazy confidence. So I knew I needed to make the putt, but I was like, I'm gonna make it. So it's almost like I'm gonna go make this putt, so we're good. So
yeah,
which is fun to be there and actually back it up because too often I have that confidence and don't back it up. So that was awesome.
Absolutely. So we go to the next hole, hole 9. Jason still got the box, gets a stroke on Brad on that hole, on hole 8. Has the box and throws a lawn dart, puts it up there. I think you were 12, 15 feet away from the basket on that one.
At most. The origin again, hole 18 at Fallen Creek was our hole 9 for this. But yes, it was the origin. And it was, again, that confidence was just oozing.
So at that point, Brad, what's going through your mind?
Oh, when he throws that. Yeah, I mean, I think I just said it, but after the previous hole, I was like, there's a very, very slim chance I'm even going to come back, let alone win. So I was just trying to not embarrass myself at that point, if I'm being honest.
Totally fair. That's what we're here for, getting those thoughts. And so hole kind of closes out as you would expect. At that point, Brad's making some highlight putts, or trying to make some highlight putts, I guess is the different way to put it. And Jason doesn't give it up. pulls out the dub. So coming at the other side of it, with the whole experience, what would you say are your biggest, both of you, what would you say is your biggest takeaway from the bag draft experience?
I think for me, it made me realize how much I lean on the disc in my specific bag, not just like the particular mold. I think I said that maybe at the top of the episode. And I really do some work with an approach disc. I really do. Even on like longer approaches, I'm grabbing that. I made it several times today. I mean, I'm like 150 plus out and I'm pulling out a zone to do the work, not something else. So it really, I didn't think it would hurt me that much to not have an approach disc, but I was foolish and I was wrong. So it did. And I definitely have a comfort with my particular discs, not just the mold. And I don't know that I like that, to be honest with you. And I have some work. I have some work to do on making good decisions off the tee. I have some work to do on getting confidence off the tee again. And then again, just I think just general like strategy, I definitely have some work I need to do.
My takeaways were that so I was happy to be part of a challenge, to do a challenge. You know, you hear people do 1 disc round challenge, 3 disc round challenges. Brad and I have talked about doing that a few times. And so the getting to do something that's different gets to kind of spice up disc golf a little bit, right? Not that disc golf is boring, but sometimes you get in a rut of, okay, I'm just going out and throwing disc and whatever. Well, here having the challenge of disc I haven't thrown before or different plastics was fantastic. I love it. And I'm not quite the opposite of Brad, but I'm a counter to Brad a little bit in that there are times I rely on specific discs, but I go other than because when I first got here, even when I was on In the Bag the first time, I was NV all the way, and I rarely throw an NV anymore. I keep one in the bag, and I threw it on hole 18 today and got a birdie, but that was the only NV I threw all day. The uplink is the most consistent one, but I didn't throw the uplink once today. So, and the hex is that new one. So I'm cycling through. Even the origin I only threw twice today. So I'm very, and granted, I don't play very well either. So I have that's part of my fun of disc golf is throwing a bunch of different discs. And so that I don't rely as much on that. And I just, for my score that day, I told Robbie this off camera and Brad, like I was happy to have on camera me playing the best I've ever played in my life. That is 100%, without doubt, the best I've ever played because I did a tournament that weekend, shot really well. And so it was fun to have that on camera. So it's easy to have fun when you're playing well, right? But the other part of that is doing the different disc is fun. Even if I throw it once and realize I don't like it, I enjoy going through that process. And even like I say, when I look at my bag today, other than the jackalope's been consistent since the fall, and there's still an uplink in my bag, but I didn't throw it once today. But it kind of mixes in and out for how it is, and I like that variety. I may not go score a lot because I'm not getting specific discs to do specific things, but I like changing it up for the fun of it.
Well, I love to hear it. So, gentlemen, thank you for being willing to experiment for this challenge. And this is where we throw it to the viewers and the listeners, because I think as the podcast continues to evolve, obviously 56 episodes in, we have obviously we're not going to change the format in terms of we're still going to bring people on. We're still going to do bag reviews, bag fittings, and do that. But as an aside, I think the heart of this has always been there aren't a lot of beginner focused podcasts out there. And if you know my heart, you know Brad's heart, like we are all about welcoming people into this sport. So if this is a challenge, if this was something that you thought, hey, I really enjoyed hearing why you drafted what you drafted, got to see the video of the experience, and got to see kind of the afterthought or the mid thoughts, and this was helpful for you in your game, let us know in the comments below, and let us know what we can do to tweak this challenge in the future. Bring back the rematch, because I'm telling you, if we bring back the rematch and Brad ties it up, you guys know that means we gotta have round 3. So
and since we have a special guest who is Mr. Warehouse himself, Jason, what is new in the warehouse?
What is new in the warehouse? We already teased probably the biggest new thing we've already teased, so I'll repeat that again. That 20-year anniversary buzz. We have a ton of them. There lots of availability, lots of foils, lots of colors. We have some with the buzz foil itself, which is super cool. The Discraft foil, there's a foil you like, we got a variety of colors that's out there for sure.
The purling is like beautiful.
Yeah, it is I have not seen, and granted I'm still newish to disc golf, right? But I have not seen a Discraft disc with that kind of purling. Maybe some of the Ledgestone special drops, but the pearlish look on there, some of the blacks, the grays, the blues, the pinks, they have a very cool shimmer and shine on there. We have recycled diamonds. We have a bunch of diamonds in general. We got some recycled diamonds that feel great. We have tournament bears that showed up as well.
Orbit bears.
Sorry, not tournament. So a bunch of trilogy stuff that's going to hit. Well, by the time you see this, it'll already be on the site, but a ton of new trilogy that's coming in. We have the agent.
Glow Agent.
The Glow Agent from Carter. Can't remember his last name. That young kid who's tearing up the courses. So lots of good stuff.
VIP Ice Orbit Underworld. If you're an Underworld fan, I threw that for Warehouse Guys Throw. Spoilers, you'll see that coming out soon. But really liked how it flew. It was actually not as flippy as I thought it would be. I mean, Underworld's pretty flippy, but that VIP Ice Orbit gave it a little.
Yep. Saki Bomb daggers came in.
Oh
as
well.
Royal Robbie. Saki Bomb daggers.
What?
Yeah,
I know your boy. So hit me up about that, Robbie.
Yeah.
So a lot of good stuff there. We've got some just some random stuff we've been putting up. I mean, we've restocked some popular Innova molds that were out of stock. We're just kind of trying to keep those all stocked for your destroyers, your race, your its, those sort of things are all up. Make sure you check those out.
We got a handful of Thought Space got thrown up. We had some extra we found at the warehouse, a handful of eras, some of those composite signature eras with Drew Gibson's print on there. A few of those got thrown on the site yesterday because we found a couple. So
yeah, a lot of great stuff. And again, if you are a fan of the performance hat and you haven't grabbed one of the new collars, now's the time because they are almost gone. Those are been flying off the shelves. So make sure if you're a fan of those, us big-headed folk, it even fits us. So if you're a big-headed guy like Robbie or Jason or I, they actually fit. They fit both normal size heads and extra large heads. So that definitely is a great choice for this nice sweaty weather that we're having. So make sure you check those out as well.
Fantastic. Well, sounds like I'm going to be checking out what's new in the warehouse. Looking forward to it and finding that new disc. And it's like, you know what? Should have drafted a Zone, should have drafted a Pearly Buzz, whatever that may be. And when you find that disc and you go, oh man, this is as good as Jason with an Origin. What do you do if it's good, Jason?
Keep it in the bag.
Yep. We'll see y'all next week.